And welcome to the Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission. The meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and to comply with orders issued by the governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and/or the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be made via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 or any of the other published numbers and enter meeting ID 991-7164-0409. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn, where you can select the government channel. Item number 2 is the roll call. Mr. Kowalski, could you please help us with that?
I can. Okay, can we check the attendees again? Nope. Okay, Mills?
Here.
Milstein?
Here.
Gibrandel?
She's not here.
Nope, she's not here. Sauvé?
Here.
Abrams?
Here.
Hammerschmidt?
Here.
Dish?
Yes, here.
Lee?
Here.
And Clark, not here yet, so we'll keep an eye on her. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Very good. Item number 3 is introductions. There are none this evening, are there?
There are
Okay.
none.
Great. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda moved by Commissioner Milstein, seconded by Commissioner Sauvé? Is there any discussion of the agenda? All in favor, please say yes or raise a hand. That is Commissioner Lee. You want to say yes or raise a hand? Are you opposed? Okay, great. Then that is all of us present. Commissioner Clark is here, if you can promote her.
I just hear. Okay, will do.
All right, and we will move on to item number 5. This is the minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st, 2021 meeting, moved by Commissioner Dish, seconded by Commissioner Milstein. Are there any discussion of the minutes? Is there any discussion? Proper English. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say yes or raise your hand. Yes, that is everybody here. Commissioner Clark?
Yes, sorry, technical difficulties.
No problem, welcome. This is why we are patient in this online. All right, that is everyone then. Item number 6 is reports from city administration, city council, planning manager, planning commission officers and committees, and written communications. Council Member Dish, do you have any report from last night?
Yes, I do. We did the final passage on the Lockwood project, on the site plan and the rezoning, and final passage on the site plan and rezoning of 2011 Packard, which I enthusiastically championed as an all-electric development because Ken Garber had called up and done the same thing. But it appears that that's not necessarily the case. It's likely, but it's not actually in the development agreement. So I'm sorry for jumping the gun and getting all excited, but maybe I'll just have to send the developer a bottle of champagne and make my dream a reality. We did not discuss the 1290 Duvarn Road annexation that you all had discussed before I came on, but I watched your meeting. And I don't know why that was taken off the council agenda, but it's one of those, since we are talking, about the concerns that we have learned about the kinds of costs that we impose on folks. This was kind of a textbook case of that. And I was going to speak to, maybe the 12-inch water main, okay, or the fire hydrant, but both, really? But I didn't get a chance to do that. So if anybody wants to reach out to me and give me a little bit more ammunition or any suggestions or brief me in any way for when that actually does come up, I would be happy to go out with guns firing in the spirit that I heard you all discuss. And I think that that's all that happened that's of major interest to you, but I'm happy to be amended and corrected.
Very good. Thank you for that report. And for any of us, I'm sure we'll be happy to fill you in on and just for your information, right? This is the other thing that will soon, the idea of these development costs is in the memo that if it hasn't already been translated to your body we voted to translate, or transmit, so should be soon. Mr. Kowalski, is there anything to add?
Yeah, I do have one item actually for the February 9th. We have our working session on February 9th, which will be continued discussion. Again, that will still be a virtual meeting. The continued discussion on the creation of the transit supportive zoning district, as well as the city's accessory dwelling unit ordinance. So some revisions on that. So those will be on your February 9th working session meeting. And that's it for me.
Any other commissioner officers or committee liaisons who have anything to report? I'll just report that ORC did meet last week, and we talked, gave some feedback to staff about things that might be helpful to bring to that working session regarding the transit district. I just want to underscore, first of all, I think it's going to be a little bit different than normal working sessions in that there will be like a webinar version, a Zoom, so that people can see kind of what we're talking about. And we've talked about potentially allowing for a little bit more interaction. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But for people who are listening, we really want feedback. So please come out and tell us, that came out in a press release today, but among the things are requiring or not every property have mixed uses on it, height, the setbacks, how close things are to, the sidewalk or to other property lines. So parking, like whether we set a maximum, whether any parking is required at all. And so all of these things are things that we need to discuss in order to give a recommendation back to council. So please come, tell your friends, come and participate. The other thing, just as a report that we talked about in ORC is working through that site plans threshold memo that we provided back to City Council. So this is to what Commissioner Dish was just talking about. City Council had asked us before to look at what the thresholds are for small projects. And so we effectively said, here's what we heard was broken, and these are things that we think we should work on. And so ORC gave staff a little bit of recommendations and direction of kind of what to bring back next so that we can actually get working on that. Anything else? There are some written communications in our packet. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is audience participation. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. So if you've called to talk about 201 Scio Church Road, there'll be an opportunity later, but not at this time. To comment on any other matters, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 991-7164-0409. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand, calling on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You'll hear an automated message saying that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we can hear you clearly. Please also state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Looks like we do have a caller on the line who's raised their hand.
We do, so should be good. Caller with the last 5 digits 534. You can go ahead and speak now. Unmute your phone, please.
Good evening. This is Tom Stolberg. I've talked before about my background, my experience, and that I used to develop subdivisions. that we didn't build the houses. So we specialized in acquiring properties and doing a lot of rezonings and getting approvals at planning commissions and city councils and township boards. And my father did that for his entire career. So I was a second generation developer. But I also have experience for over 20 years as a coach and a referee. So I think it really fits my personality that I like the laws and the rules and the process. And that's how I learned zoning and planning. Zoning is law, and there is a process. And I do get frustrated sometimes when we don't follow the process and we do some inappropriate things. And it's tough getting frustrated at you or council members because you all have not been trained in a lot of parts of the job that you're asked to do. There's some parts of it that you do a very good job at. I've been watching Planning Commission for quite some time now. But there's certain things like rezonings and when you need a master plan revision prior to entertaining a rezoning that you simply haven't been trained on. And I know some top experts in the field and I've had them watch some clips. And I guess my favorite comment from one of the very top experts in the field is they're not even having the right conversation. There's criteria in our ordinance that need to be followed. We have the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act that allows us to have a zoning ordinance if we do it the way they want us to do it. And we don't always do that. So we put ourselves in some legal jeopardy, potential legal jeopardy by doing that. And we put ourselves in the potential for some very negative outcomes. One thing I want to object to is the memo from C1A and C1AR. That's not how it happened. You all voted on December 15th on a specific memo, and you all said that it was very important that you respond to council before the end of the year as you were charged to do, and you did that. And you made a couple small changes, significant but small changes to the memo, and that should have gone to council, and it didn't go to council. Council had a meeting on the 21st. That was within the time where the moratorium was still active, and the moratorium could have been extended for another 180 days if it had done so before it expired. The memo did not go to council as you voted and instructed. So council's will and planning commission's will were not achieved. So I'm not blaming you guys. You gave clear directions, but it didn't happen. I also want to talk about real briefly some of the things that are coming up. I'll be here next week and talk to you about the other things then. So have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other callers on the line.
All right, so we will move on to item number 8, which are the public hearings for the next meeting.
Yes, we have 3 scheduled public hearings for the next meeting. 2385 East Ellsworth, just site plan and special exception use for planning commission approval. This is a proposed site plan to redevelop the existing 1-story building into a marijuana provisioning center, as well as a marijuana retailer, including rearranging and improving the parking lot, as well as providing conflicting land use buffers and installing enclosures for solid waste and recycling. There would also be, of course, with that is the special exception use, which is, again, to allow the marijuana provisioning center and marijuana retailer at that location. And another one for 2394 Winewood, which is another special exception use for planning commission approval. This is also, this was a business that was originally a medical marijuana provisioning center. The site improvements were were constructed according to the approved site plan. And the petitioner is now requesting a special exception use to allow a marijuana micro business, which allows cultivation as well as the sales of marijuana. No other changes are proposed to the site. So that is not a site plan, it's just a special exception use. And those are the 2 scheduled public hearings for the next meeting.
Very good, thank you. We are on to item 9A in our regular business. This is the 201 Scioto Church Road annexation and zoning that will go to City Council for approval. As is our normal practice, we will have allow the petitioner to provide a presentation for up to 10 minutes. Mr. Kowalski will then provide staff's comments We'll open the public hearing and then have our discussion. Looks like the petitioner has in the process of being promoted.
Yep, you should be ready. I have a brief presentation, again, dealing with the nature of the proposal. I've kind of covered it. I said the petitioner did not necessarily have to prepare a presentation since there wasn't much to present. But Mr. Issa is on the phone right now. I don't know if you should be unmuted. If you'd like to say anything, introduce yourself.
My name is Aziz Issa, and one of the owners of the lot, and we're proposing to annex it to Ann Arbor from Pittsfield.
Okay,
Very good. Well, that is well within your 10 minutes of presentation.
Thank you. Short and to the point. I'll keep you on the line. And just if you want to mute yourself, if we have any additional questions, we may call you back up.
Perfect. Well, perfect. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think at this time we'll probably go right into my presentation. I should be able to share my screen here in a there we go. Is everybody see my screen okay?
Yep, and it's
Go
full
on,
screen
Patrick.
too.
Okay. And let me know, well, I'll ask if it's not advancing because I've had that issue in the past. So again, everybody knows the address 201. So this is an annexation and a zoning. They're requesting an R2A zoning, which is a duplex zoning. You can see here on the left is a zoning map. Obviously in the township, the gray is surrounding township land. So it's surrounded on two sides by township. On the right, you can see the aerial photo. Most of the township lands on to the west are currently vacant. So again, outlined in yellow here across from Pioneer High School, just adjacent to the intersection there of Ann Arbor Saline Road. One thing I'll mention now that we have this up is, as it relates to the master plan, it was my staff report, the master plan recommendation. It really had covered this whole general area here, including all the gray parcels and one of the developed parcels here, as well as the intersection around Sile Church and South Main. That master plan recommendation really called for office uses along at the intersection, which is exactly what's there now. And then kind of a transition from single family attached to the single family detached, which is here along the west. This map's a pretty good indication of, you do see there is some adjacent art, well, not quite adjacent, but right down Sile Church here of R2A type development of duplexes, as well as some similar on the land directly adjacent to that. So that I wanted to point that out when we had it on the screen in light of the master plan recommendations. Here is the subject site. As you can see from the road, it's vacant. And here's the required Alta survey. I believe it's about 1.4 acres or so, 1.24 acres. So again, really at this time, the petitioner is just planning to annex it and requesting an R2. With that, we have, the planning manager has recommended an area plan waiver, which is something, as you can see within the motion, that is a separate motion that would be granted by Planning Commission. We are requesting that waiver at this time because according to the code, one, there is no new development plan at this time, and they have provided the required land survey. I'm in the future, obviously, the intent would be to develop some kind of duplexes on the parcel. And that would, of course, have to come before you for site planning. So as an annexation and a rezoning, if this is approved tonight, it would go to council for the next step for the annexation. And then if the annexation is approved by city council, that will go off to the state of Michigan. Once approved by state of Michigan, it will come back to city council for the R2 zoning, for 2 readings of the R2 zoning. And really, that does conclude my presentation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the proposed 201 Scio Church Roads rezoning for city council approval. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 and then entering meeting ID 991-7164-0409. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand, calling on you one by one using the last 3 digits of your telephone number. In order to electronically raise your hand, you press *9 on your telephone. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when you do speak, please move to a quiet area and mute any background sound or television so that we can hear you clearly. Please also state your name and address at the beginning of your comments.
Okay, I see we have one caller on the line. Okay, so caller with the last 3 digits, 185. If you can unmute your phone, you can speak now.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, my name's Aram Kalustian. I own the house at 521 Lambeth Drive in Lansdowne. It's rental property. First of all, as I understand it, the neighbors in Lansdowne were not directly notified about this meeting, which I think they should have been. I object to any development that's going to have linkages to Lansdowne. I think it's going to be detrimental to the Lansdowne subdivision. It's going to increase traffic in the neighborhood and put an additional load on the sewer system, which is already at capacity. I just think that any connections to Lansdowne are going to be detrimental to the Lansdowne subdivision. That pretty much sums up my comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else on the line, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and read the motions. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the 201 Scioto Church Road annexation and R2A two-family dwelling district zoning. And the second motion is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby waives the area plan requirement because the zoning is consistent with the master plan. No new construction is proposed, and a survey of the existing improvements on the site has been provided. Can I have a commissioner move these? Moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Hammerschmidt. I didn't ask before. Any objections to taking them together? Okay, so we will discuss them together as well. Any questions, comments for staff? Commissioner Lee.
About the public comment, about the insufficiency of notice, can you just clarify whether sufficient notice was given to the nearby neighborhoods?
Sure. I looked quickly once we were during that comment. We did send out all the required mailing labels, but it looks like again, I didn't have a lot of time, but some of those, a lot of that is outside the area that this would reach, outside the boundary, the buffer of what would be noticed, unfortunately. So when a site plan comes back in, we will make sure and double check that. But at this time, it looks like they are beyond the notice. We have the list of what was mailed out. I can't verify, again, that the Postal Service necessarily delivered them, but it looks like the notice was prepared.
So it's safe to say that procedurally, everything was done correctly.
I believe so, yes. From my verification at this time, yes.
Okay, thank you. My other question is whether there are plans to connect this with the Lambeth Drive. I see there's a lot of other parcels, but is there any indications that that's the case? I don't see how it's physically really possible, but.
No, I mean, again, at this time, the property owner doesn't have any specific plans for development, but looking at the way the site lays out, looking at the configuration of the site, I think that would be, you'd have to acquire additional parcels in between there. There's also a wetland, I know from my work on the adjacent 2250, well, not adjacent, but Ann Arbor Saline Road, it kind of touches around the back there. Yes, I don't think so, but we would have to look at that at site plan, but again, at this point, there's no plans for that, and I think it would be infinitely complicated.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Those are the two questions I had at this time.
Commissioner Dish.
I wanted to follow up on Mr. Lee's first question. And I think this is going to become increasingly an issue as we move into transit supportive projects, because they're in areas where the radius of notification isn't going to buy you much in terms of neighbors, I should say. And so I'm not necessarily advocating one way or the other, but I'm merely asking if, in order to avoid these situations where people feel as if they haven't heard about something that they should have heard about, I'm wondering if we don't need to extend the radius of notification when we're working in areas where there's a mix of commercial and residential.
Yes, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I mean, we've done that for other ordinance amendments. I know is things that probably involve like a much larger area is what you're speaking. People outside that immediate area are affected by it. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, the program that creates the address labels, we have it set, of course, for certain projects automatically, but there's no reason why on larger projects that concern more of the citizens, that involve and really affect more citizens, that notice area couldn't be increased. What that distance is, I'm not sure. We'd have to look at that, but that's a great point.
It also, yes, I think the size of the project is definitely a factor. And it's also just as we're in, it's one thing to have a tighter radius when we're in a densely populated residential area. But as we move into these areas that are less densely populated, that we want to make more dense, I think people do end up feeling shortchanged, and we're not we're not providing notice to as many, just in sheer numbers, as many people because of the nature of that kind of neighborhood.
Yes, that's correct. Like there's several large parcels around this, as you can see. So correct, that eats up a lot of that notification area. Yes. So that's definitely something we can take under advisement, and I'll make note for future.
Commissioner Lee.
This question is actually for the petitioner. Is that appropriate?
Sure, you
Okay,
can.
gotcha. And please bear with me again. I'm still learning. So, obviously, the annexation process is it's fairly lengthy. You have to go get an Alta. Not exactly a cheap endeavor. What are you guys thinking? I'd love some context, and I've read some of the things on Nextdoor and things of that nature. I ride my bike through here all the time. I love the new bike lanes there. But from the petitioner standpoint, like, what are you guys thinking? I'd love to hear what prompted this.
Sorry, can I hear your quick question again? That toward me.
Could you just provide some context as to what you're thinking? Because the annexation process is fairly involved, so I'd love to hear kind of what you're thinking.
We're definitely thinking more of, as Matt said, potentially a duplex for more living there. We know from my research, there's definitely not as much apartments or condos available there. So we've had this land for quite some time at this point, and it's been part of Pittsfield, and we want to move it to Ann Arbor because that's what fits the master plan. The master plan for Pittsfield was just a single family home. So for us, we're just thinking more housing, either for family housing or for more, would say graduate, not as much as undergrad, because it's kind of, a little further away from campus. So definitely we're aiming toward having condos there, what fits under the master plan, to do more, as I said, for families or to do for grad students. We're thinking 2 or 3 bedrooms with, park garages, but we're not that in depth in it just yet. But that's the plan, hopefully.
Thank you. That's really all I had. So just need to get a little context.
Great. Anybody else? I'll just note that as we see a lot of township islands that come before us, right? This is the first time that I remember this idea of an area plan waiver coming into play. And so went back to read the staff report, and as it notes, Mr. Kowalski, thanks for pulling it out, like, we don't require an area plan if it's going to be zoned for something in R1. Is that,
Right.
it's when it's more than one residence, which again, just is another indication to me of like things that are in our code that you kind of wonder about a little bit. There are many times where there's something that's not, I just want to put it on the record, that if it is currently zoned something and some like already in the city, right? And they want to have, if they want it to be rezoned elsewhere, I tend to not like area plans and prefer to go right to the site plan, because usually they do have something very clearly in mind. And I want to see what it is rather than like have it rezoned. This is in my mind. So generally speaking, like having a site plan, not even having an area plan is where I go. But this one is one where it's very clearly in the master plan that like R2 is like the right zoning designation here. There's R2 even closer to the Lansdowne neighborhood than from what this is. There's R2 farther south, like this, that seems an appropriate thing here. So seeing what that looks like, I think I'm comfortable with waiving the area plan. But for those who haven't been on commission for a while, like this idea of like having an area plan which shows you what could be built, even if that's not what's going to be built, comes up. It's just, we haven't seen this very often in township islands, because most of the time those township islands we end up having the recommendation based on the master plan that they be rezoned as R1s. Is that fair?
Yeah, this is pretty rare. I mean, this is the first one I actually can remember, if not to annex straight to an R2. But
yeah.
Again, in this case, at least planning staff felt it made the most sense.
And this is the other thing, like if there is a movement, I kind of, read through MLive that there's some idea that if we're annexing things in, maybe having something that's not an R1 designation is appropriate, just to know that then this raises this, like it's another bar that we require petitioners to jump through, hoop that they have to jump through in coming up with an area plan unless we decide to waive it. So another opportunity for us to think about what is required in our ordinance. Any other comments? Great. I think we're ready for a vote, Mr. Kowalski. We usually do a voice or a roll call vote.
Yep. Okay. Seeing nobody. Okay. Mills.
Yes.
Milstein.
Yes.
Gabe Randall. Oh, she's absent. Sorry. Sauvé.
Yes.
Abrams.
Yes.
Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Dish.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
And Clark. Oh, she dropped off. Missed that.
We
Okay.
didn't hear you.
Yes.
You can give us thumbs up. Awesome.
Okay. All right. Okay. It is approved.
The motion carries. Very good. Now you move on to City Council. Mr. Issa. All right. That concludes our new business. We are on to public comment, item number 10. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about any item of interest. Public comment can be made by calling 877-853-5247 and entering meeting ID 991-7164-0409. City staff will call on those who've raised their hand. You raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. When we've called on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number, please move to a quiet area, mute any background sound. Please also state your name and address at the beginning of your comments.
Okay. I see one caller with their hand up. I will. All right. Caller 534. You should have permission to talk now, please.
Hello, this is Tom Stolberg again. I want to thank Councilperson and Commissioner Dish for talking about notice and how we should be maybe expanding notice. And I want to relate that to what happened with the ADU ordinance revisions from a couple of years ago, for those of you who weren't around or didn't really know what council ended up doing with it after you passed it. There were 19,000 residences that were going to be very significantly, potentially very significantly impacted. 99% of them would have no clue that literally overnight, or however long it takes an ordinance revision to clear the books, they could have a by right condition in all their neighbors' houses, backyards, having a brand new ADU constructed within less than 10 feet of their rear yard lot line. All 5 of their neighbors could do it. It would become by right the way it was handled last time. So for 19,000 residences to not know that that was going to be done was why it didn't pass at council. So it's less of a question of what the specific changes are, and more it was a question of the significance of the changes without the knowledge of the public. So I think some creativity is going to be needed here to properly notify the public. Last time it was done as an ordinance revision, it had minimal notice. All that had to be done was be published in the Washtenaw Legal News. I think we can all agree that that wouldn't suffice to actually let people know, even if it's technically correct. It really wouldn't serve the intent of letting people know what was going to happen to them. So next week, we're going to talk about the ADU ordinance, and I think you're going to have a lot of interest from people to expand the ADU ordinance. I'd like to see an expansion of the ADUs, but I'd also like to make sure that we figure out how to let everybody know. Let's let 99% of the people know, as opposed to last time when 99% of the people didn't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see other callers on the line. If you'd like to speak, you can press *9 to raise your hand and indicate that.
Okay, I see one more caller with the last 3 digits, 205. If you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak now.
Howdy, this is Joe Spalding. I'm calling from Holland, Michigan. I just wanted to say I absolutely think the ADUs are amazing, and I think that 99% of everybody should know that they're fantastic and great. And if there's going to be more accessibility for ADUs in Ann Arbor, I think that people should know that, but I don't think that that should hold up the ordinance. And I think that's what really this is all about. So let's make sure that we are diligent. I know I trust that with Dr. Dish there, that you're going to be diligent and thoughtful and make sure you check all your boxes. But let's get some ADUs up, because it's a very efficient and great way to expand housing options. And, frankly, if someone wants to live 10 feet from the end of my backyard, and they can build a structure there and live in it, I think that's pretty cool. I get a new neighbor. Neighbors are awesome. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see another telephone caller on the line. If you'd like to make a comment during this public comment opportunity, you can press *9 to indicate that to us.
Okay. I do see one more hand up. Okay, caller with the last 3 digits, 815. You should be able to unmute your phone now and speak. Sorry, I said 215. I think it was 815. Sorry.
There I am. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes. Okay, great. My name's Perry Sampson. I live on Mara Drive, and I was a little bit late getting into the last discussion because I'm not fast with the buttons. But my comments were neither pro or con that development on Scioto Church. But living near it, the comment is this: we have a lot of a lot of development going on in the area. Scioto Church has, I think, 4 different lots there that could well be developed in the future. We have Valhalla, and we've got 2250 Ann Arbor Saline Road. And traffic studies seem to be going on piecemeal, where each individual project does its own traffic study. But with this happening, and I saw in your document that there might be yet another road added somewhere between Ann Arbor Saline and Scioto Church. I would argue this needs to have some more holistic review of traffic flow, given all the new development happening outside of Ann Arbor and south of I-94, and as well as Valhalla and all this potentially new development here. And doing it piecemeal is not going to get us good solutions for how to handle the traffic issues in this area with a growing number of vehicles. I stand totally behind, solar. I stand totally behind people taking the bus more, and if that happens, yay. But the reality is that people are probably going to use their cars still. So I would like to encourage you to think about how to do this, to work with your traffic commission to get a better study for all these things happening to see where this is going to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that exhausts the telephone callers. So I will close this opportunity for public comment and move on to item 11, which is commission proposed business. Is there any?
I don't have any.
I will just iterate to the end of the callers that came in. We talked a lot about ORC, giving some thoughts on the transit supported districts. That'll be on next week's working session, but there is ADUs. So if you need to hear it again, that's an opportunity to call in and let us know what you think, because this is one of the recommendations that we're going to give back. Again, we won't be voting next week, but that is an opportunity for public input. So tell your friends and be prepared for a much longer meeting than this one. Commissioner Dish.
May I ask a question to follow up on what the final caller raised about the traffic studies?
Sure.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Kowalski, if when the city does traffic studies, it takes into account the cumulative effect of increasing levels of development and how it does that.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, a lot. So obviously when each new development will come in, they'll perform their study based on the data at that time. But when there's other studies that have been done within that area, they also have access to that data to project. It's tricky sometimes with larger projects in the area that you can't count their traffic yet because they may not ever get built, kind of thing. But they do look at other developments in the area, and the traffic engineers are able to, like you said, they can either request that the petitioner obtain the extra data from these other developers, or they can look at it for themselves. So they don't do necessarily a holistic approach of, well, they wouldn't for one project do a holistic approach of like an entire like Scioto Church road or something else like that. There's various studies that they do at other times to look at various corridors and things like that. But as for each individual project, they do look at the projects around it and to see what that potential impact could be. So, and again, they do periodically do other like corridor studies and things like that. So they look at also the master plan projections for those areas. In this case, it's a little more tricky because there's not it's an old master plan recommendation, so there's not a lot of detail on recommended density and things like that. But I did, one question that had come up, and I think it was noted by another caller about a road connection, which confused me a bit. I looked in the master plan recommendation does mention a possible street connection, but that master plan recommendation is very old, and that there's private land now. So that's not, but I think that's why that confusion. So it's not actually in the staff, it's the old master plan language that said if a street was connected, it should do this, this, and this. But with the private land in that area, that's not in plans for the city.
So
all right, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I think it does. So would it be fair to say that the approach is neither piecemeal nor holistic?
Correct. Yes, I think that would, yes, I think that would be fair. It doesn't go out sometimes as much as some people would like it to, but it's not just looking at the site in a vacuum.
And as another example that's closer, at least within your ward, this came up a lot in studying the Pontiac Trail developments. And that was a question, not many people were still in commission at that time, but that was a question that we asked, like, have you considered, we just approved this 6 months ago. We were assured by the traffic engineer that was, even though there's no cars to count yet, that was taken into account in the next development proposal. So it was a cumulative thing, if that makes sense. And I think that Commissioner Milstein and I were the only ones around with the connection that Stubb Street and like the idea of that road came in. Yeah, it doesn't go through this property. That was the discussion.
It does make sense, and it was partly on my mind.
Great. Anything else? We're on to item 12. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Milstein. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say yes. Yes. Commissioner Clark, are you? There we go. All right, that's everybody. Have a good night, folks. We'll see you next week.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.